Hello, hello, hello. The mask is back, and what did I say? I said Cannonier was going to KO him after an early onslaught from Rodriguez, Robocop, Barack Obama 2.0. And, it took a little longer than I thought, but he got it done. Cannonier, he got it done, okay? I was the only one that picked him, okay? So I don't want to hear anything about my Stipe prediction in case anyone's going to talk about that. I have good underdogs if I'm not biased, okay? I was biased for Janata Deniz and I was biased for Stipe Miocic just because I liked them. But when I'm not biased, I got the best underdog picks, okay? Now, we're starting with Giulia Cavalcanti, or I'm not going to try and pronounce her first name, but Cavalcanti. Yeah, this is basically how I thought it'd go. I knew that some people would be a little surprised that it wasn't a finish, particularly the guru, but, the MMA guru, I mean, he's got decent predictions, but he's more of a comedian, if I'm being honest. He's more just like fun commentary. He's not really the guru like he used to, I think, with predictions. So, I don't even think he was predicting a finish anyway, though. But he was saying, like he was talking like he was surprised in his recap video. But I expected this, just basically outpointing her. She's definitely a decent kickboxer to look out for in the division, but she's not really a grappler, not really anything like that. So I don't see her challenging for the belt, but she could. She's young, pretty young for like a top 15, probably maybe top 10 at this point when the rankings get updated. So yeah, pretty good decision. And Walter Walker getting us a heel hook, I think it was. Again, back to back, two heel hooks for him. And yeah, Dante May shouldn't have been ranked, but I think this win should get him in the rankings either way because it was an impressive win. And, in the fashion it was in. Like two heel hooks in a row for him, Junior Tava and then Dontel Mays. Like that's really impressive, and he's young, 6'6", 78-inch reach, 78 and a half. That's pretty good. One thing I know for certain, Dontel Mays is not 6'6". I don't know where they got that from. They changed it, I think. I think he was originally supposed to be like 6'3", 6'4", and then they changed the stats for some reason. It doesn't make sense. His original height makes more sense. But either way, Eliza Smith and Vince Morales. I mean, Vince Morales and Eliza Smith, I did kind of actually. Okay, here's the hot take. Vince Morales won 30-27. I know nobody's going to agree with me here. And, this wasn't an underdog I got, but it was a really close fight. I was giving Vince Morales the chance that he actually deserved and that most of the Tapology fans weren't giving him. Most of the Tapology fans were picking Elijah Smith, and me included, but I was giving him that chance. I was saying this is almost close to a 50-50, and it kind of was, but Elijah Smith, he was the better boxer, I would say, for the most part, but the biggest moments in the second and the third round were the submissions. In the end of the third round, Vince Morales definitely stole that round due to the submission. If you look back at that submission, I know that people value like big shots over submissions these days, but if there were like one or two more seconds in that round, it was over. He was either going out or tapping. You should see the pain and agony in Elijah Smith's face when he was getting the rear naked choke. Or maybe it's different when it's standing. Maybe it's a different name, but he was getting like standing rear naked choked, and it was like almost done. He was squinting in pain so badly, his eyes were popping out. I think that it would have been done for him if the choke went on for a second or two longer. And then in the second round, he had like Vince Morales had like I think a few darces and then like a guillotine maybe. Maybe I'm wrong about the guillotine, but either way, he definitely had some pretty close submissions in the second round as well. So I would have given him that as well. The first round I think you could give to Elijah Smith. However, I still think that like watching live, I gave 30-27. Vince Morales. It's a really close fight, but I still, looking back, I lean Vince Morales 29-28. But the first round, I still think you could give Vince Morales because he did have decent boxing exchanges. Now, granted, he did get jabbed a little bit and he got leg kicked a little bit, which, you could clearly tell visually. He didn't like that. But Vince Morales, when he got in the pocket, he was actually landing some decent like looping shots, and it actually kind of got Elijah Smith on the back foot a bit. So I think that that's a very 50-50 round. And the second and third were pretty clear to me. So I think that Vince Morales, even though, this is coming back into the UFC, this is two losses in a row. I actually think that this one wasn't that bad. And, I thought Elijah Smith, I know that he's a lot younger than a Taylor Lapilus, but I thought that he would actually look more like a Taylor Lapilus in this fight. He did, but, like a less good one. But he's young. He's gonna learn from that, I suppose. Either way, good fight. I'm glad I got it right technically, but I mean, I actually saw this going to Vince Morales. I know that's a hot take. Probably most people will disagree, but I thought that Vince Morales looked great, especially with the submission department. And I knew he would if he could get the submissions off, but the takedowns it wasn't really working too well. Gabriel Bonfim and Chaos Williams. This surprised me. Now, this was also a crazy one because, Chaos Williams, even though he is able to find the shots usually, this time he wasn't, and he was just outskilled technically. Gabriel Bonfirm, he definitely vastly improved in his striking. His jab was on point. His leg kicks was spinning Chaos Williams. He just couldn't find his range. He was getting annoyed, frustrated, and then ultimately, I think Gabriel Bonfirm, when Chaos Williams was finally trying to find the confidence to actually land something, Gabriel Bonfirm knew that he took the smart path and he found the takedown. He got the choke, and my goodness, was it a brutal choke? It was a very vicious one, and Chaos Williams was out for a couple minutes. It looked like. I believe it was maybe a Darce, something like that. Lots of Darces on this fight card, I think. Some not the most common submissions this card. Like we got a heel hook, we got a Darce. I think this was. I'll check in a moment. Actually, let's just see. Yeah, Darce. Um, and you know, usually you see like rear naked chokes, guillotines, all that. Sometimes they go for arm bars. You don't usually see these like leg and darce. You don't see that too much. So it's pretty cool actually. I think this really did play out like an underrated card. Even people are still talking about it right now, like it was a pretty mid card. And oh, let's not talk about it. Let's not do recaps for it. Why not? This is a good card. Fairly underrated, kind of flew under the radar. Even for me, I didn't notice this until, to be honest, the until past the weigh-ins, until fight night, until it was actually happening. I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. I understand it kind of flew under the radar, but that was kind of UFC's marketing on that part, I think. It's actually a decent card, and that was a good win for Bonfim. And Rafael Estevam, Jesus Aguilar. Um, yeah, I think this was a pretty simple one. Jesus had okay moments on the feet at times, but I mean, it really went ultimately to the first two rounds being just more controlled by Rafael Estevan and Jesus. Due to not landing enough shots, it kind of went to, okay, well, they were kind of even on the striking, so the control went to Rafael Estevan, so we're gonna pretty much just give it to Rafael Estevan in the first two rounds. And then in the third, yes, Jesus was able to land more shots. I actually predicted this in my prediction video. I think I was saying, if in the third round I could see Jesus Aguilar getting a third round TKO as an underdog. And he was doing that, but then he went for a takedown, I think, and then that gave Rafael the chance to reverse and then survive. I think that's how it played out. I could be wrong there, but I think it ultimately went into some kind of a scramble, and Jesus managed to mess up a little bit, and ultimately he couldn't find the finish because he was putting good combinations in the third round, being the more fresh fighter, but it wasn't enough. So even when I'm not picking the underdog, and I still get the massive favorite, I'm still picking like the right things for the underdog for what they need to do, They need to just be fresh, surviving the takedowns, surviving any chokes, and then just being the better striker he is, being the better in the pocket boxer, as well as showing decent leg kicking, which I feel like he should have went to more in the third round. He showed a couple good kicks, but then later on in the round he just went away from that. So the kicks, it's like sometimes like as well as the fact that oh, when someone hurts someone to the body and then they end up headhunting, like Edmund Shabazian against Gerald Mearshart, which he actually had a good performance in this card. I'll get to that in a moment, but lots of these fighters sometimes they go like for the kill when you got to be a little more technical. I understand that he only had one round to work with, but you got to break down the fighter, break down the foundations, and then you go for the head. So I mean, good performance by Rafael, but I think he's got to work on maybe being a little more vicious, being more threatening. Because in that third round, against Jesus Aguilar, like other guys are gonna really take advantage of that third round where he's a little tired, and you could see it. You could see that against a better striker, against a Brendan Moreno, it would be over for Rafael Estevan in the third round, no question. Um, But Angela Hill and Ketlin Souza, I'm actually glad about this because, like I said in my previous video, I like Angela Hill. I think she's a cool fighter, and she was technically piecing Ketlin Souza up, not like big shots or anything, but she was just like outpointing her clearly. I'm surprised that this one was a split. I'm remaining completely unbiased here because um, I picked Ketlin Souza. I actually wanted her to win this because I thought that she would be a decent prospect to look out for. But that haircut was not it for me, and I knew immediately once I saw that haircut that she had, because I didn't actually see the weigh-ins until after the fights. Once I saw that haircut she had, I knew it was over for her. But I mean, she did actually have a good third round, and the second round was a little 50-50. But overall, Angela Hill, I think, had the more accumulative damage. Now, granted, Ketlin Souza arguably landed the bigger shots, but I feel like the accumulative outweighed the bigger impact in that round because Ketlin was just not going for it enough. Yes, she was pressing. She was like the one on the front foot, but she wasn't really taking advantage of that. When she would go, she actually landed decent, but Angela Hill was just outpacing her clearly. And I think she even got some like ground control takedowns as well. So she actually showed like that veteran that she has, that veteran nature that a 40-year-old like her would have, which brings me to the main event. Not really because I still got some fights to go on to, but it's the same concept with the main event. So yeah, good job for her, good win, showing the veteran spirit. And Jose Delgado, this one is short. I don't have to go on about it too long. Jose Delgado, he basically had I think it was a hook, overhand right. Yeah, pretty close. That overhand right was pretty nasty. Connor Matthews, yeah, I just didn't think he had the chin to take the boxing from Jose Delgado. He had pretty, it was competitive a little bit, but it was pretty clear that Jose was just finding his timing and he was gonna find the power shots that he needed to get the job done. Connor Matthews, he was landing some decent like straight shots, but like I said, it was kind of 50-50 until it wasn't. And then Jose Delgado, once he landed, there was no chance of Connor Matthews coming back from that. Yeah, Connor Matthews, I mean, he's just there was a time before Dennis Bazooka KO'd him where it was like, oh, he's actually gonna finish Dennis Bazooka, but it didn't actually happen, and I think they should cut him from the UFC. He's not a prospect. He won't be. He's only a stepping stone for guys like Jose Delgado to actually make their way into the UFC at this point. So yeah. And then we have Andrei Petrovsky versus Rodolfo Vieira. I actually thought that this was like a clear win for Andrei Petrovsky. I know that some people like MMA Guru are saying that Rodolfo Vieira won this, and it was close, but close fights can still have clear winners. I do think that Rodolfo Vieira, it was impressive for Petrovsky to stuff his takedowns and not get into any jujitsu entanglement. But I did think that Rodolfo Vieira could have won this, to be honest, just off of throwing more. I feel like he was too patient waiting for the right shots when it's like, Andre Petrovsky and Rodolfo Vieira were pretty similar in style, at least on the feet. And so I feel like he could have maybe just thrown a little more to make it a little more even, maybe a split decision. He could have made it more competitive in the judges' eyes just off of throwing a little bit more output. Because Andre Petrovsky wasn't really throwing much either, to be honest, but he was just doing that little bit more, as well as stuffing the takedowns in the right moments, at the right times. And yeah, I mean, it's a good win for Andre Petrovsky. He might get Bo Nickel, he might not. He called him out, but ultimately, I think that was a little bit of a boring fight. Not too many strikes thrown. And it wasn't really a standout performance for Andrei Petrovsky. Like, it was impressive that he got the takedowns stuffed, yes, but I mean, striking wise, he's nothing special. So, I mean, Nazim Sadikov. Now, this is something that was impressive. I did think that if Nazim Sadikov won, it would be something out of nowhere, and it was this. It was a question mark kick. I almost said crescent kick, which is kind of similar, but not quite. Yeah, the question mark kick. I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, he was getting pieced up, and I did expect this to happen like that. I did expect Nazim Sadikov maybe later in the fight. He would have bigger moments, but ultimately Ismail Bonfer would win the first and the third due to having the better boxing as well as better longer combos. Because even though he doesn't have the greatest power, he did show in his last fight. I forget who, but Pichel, Vink Pichel, something like that. Let me actually just check that real quick. I think it's Vink Pichel. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, against him, he showed some good boxing combinations. So I expected that here, and he did kind of deliver until the question mark kick, where he just kind of looked completely dazed after that question mark kick. Ever since that question mark kick, he just couldn't really recover. It seemed like he was dazed for the rest of it, and then, even though he did say to the ref or the doctors, like, yes, 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 I'm ready, like 2 or 3 times after he said no, he couldn't really see how many fingers the ref was holding. I think that's what they were doing. They were like showing how many fingers, and he said no, he couldn't see it, but then he said yes, yes, yes when it was being threatened of stoppage. He was like, because he's a warrior, he's a fighter, he wants to go out on a shield. But I mean, that was a nasty question mark kick. I actually think that because of that question mark kick, Ismail would have probably gone on to lose to Nazim. Nazim showed a really good improvement in his kicking game. He was showing the teeps, he was showing the leg kicks, and then that ultimately went upstairs to the question mark kick. It was a beautiful kicking game, but his boxing is leaving somewhat to be desired. Good win from him. And yeah, I mean, Ismail, I think if he didn't get kicked there, I know this is like a fairy tale land, whatever situation, but if he didn't get question mark kicked there, I do think he would have won, but Nazim set him up pretty beautifully with that question mark kick, setting him up with the legs and the body, teep kick, leg kick, whatever, and then ultimately going upstairs with it. Beautiful, beautiful. And then we have Edmund Shabazian versus Dylan Budka. I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Dylan Budka, he's just not good at all. I don't really know how he got into UFC. I mean, he did beat by a split decision like a 13 or 15 and 0 guy on the Contender Series. So, I mean, that's impressive record-wise, but by split decision, maybe I didn't really watch that, I don't think, but off my memory, I don't think so. And, if it was a split decision, maybe it could have went to the other guy. So I guess they're just looking at the record, not so much the fact that it's a split decision when they're signing this guy. But I mean, yeah, I don't really know why why they signed him other than that, and I don't really know why they signed him to fight Edmund Shabazian either. Because I mean, Edmund Shabazian, yes, he's coming off a loss against Joel Mearshart, the GOAT, but I mean. It's just like a complete mismatch. I mean, this is a two-loss streak in a row for Dylan Booker. I understand that Edmund Shabazian's coming off a loss, but before then he had a KO against AJ Dobson. So I mean, why do this matchup? I mean, he had clearly better striking. I did think that it would be like, because he is a bit more of a like a he's not like a Cesar Almeida, I mentioned that in my previous video. I did expect him to maybe struggle a little more on the feet before he found the KO, but I mean, yeah, yeah, wow. I mean, Dylan Booker, he just went for like a double jab or something, and then beautifully Edmund Shabazian like dove over or under something like that. I don't remember specifically, but he came around with like a Yuri Prohaska improved Yuri Prohaska type head movement, and then beautiful like overhead right it was, or was it a straight right? A right hook, okay, yeah. And then yeah, he just followed up. Not much else he needed to follow up with. Just a couple shots, I think it was. And yeah, pretty simple. I mean, Dylan Puka, he should be cut from the UFC. MMA Guru's talking about the accolades and how it's not really that impressive from Dylan Puka. I mean, yeah, he's like low-hanging fruit, let's be honest. There are some, like, without a doubt, Guru has a point with the wrestling accolades, but there are some genuinely good wrestlers that will make it over. Like, I think Edmund Shabazian did have some accolades or awards from wrestling. So if we're gonna talk about that, then let's talk about, hey, Edmund Shabazian also did have something like that. So, I mean, it's basically which accolades or awards are better. It's not really, awards and accolades don't really mean anything. Although I get his point, they aren't what they used to be in the eyes of the fans. They aren't the, oh my gosh, this guy is this and that champion outside of UFC, so he's gonna ragdoll these other guys. No, it's not really like that. So I get his point. And yeah, good win. Good win. Yusuf Zalal coming Qatar. Yeah, I mean, he was kind of running into the third round, Yusuf Zalal I'm referring to, but he was piecing him up with the jab and the leg kick and, other little things, other little combos. Not too many combos, but like 1-2s and stuff. I'm referring to Yusuf over Calvin Qatar. He was kind of in the first 2 rounds, just outdoing him with pretty simple tools, just good head movement, good body movement, not being able to get cut off on the cage. Leg kicks were there. Kicks were pretty good from Yusuf Zalal. Decent knees as well. I did predict that he would land those knees. And yeah, he did actually lose the third round, but even then he was actually it was kind of 50-50 until the last minute where Calvin Kattar did land a decent punch as Yusuf Zalal was doing that upper body movement, like back and forth, hopping. He did actually cut off the cage a little decently at the end in the last minute there, landing a decent like left hook, I think it was. Ultimately, biggest shot of the round, and then a couple more shots that gave him that last bit of the round. So I mean, Calvin Kattar, this is impressive for a guy that wasn't ranked, and then he beat the number 10 Calvin Kattar. But this is nowhere near the same guy. I said in my prediction video, he's probably not in his prime, and if he's not, it's going to be after this fight for sure that he's not in his prime. And I do think that whether it be after the Arnold Allen fight or after the Aljamain Sterling fight, I think it was after the Arnold Allen fight, but it was certainly now for sure in this fight. He wasn't in his prime. Whether it be Aljamain or Arnold Allen, it doesn't really matter. In this fight, he wasn't in his prime. So I think people are overlooking that fact because there are some people that are contrarian now that are saying, bro, it was freaking crazy how he styled on Calvin Kattar. And, look at all these guys that couldn't do that. It's like, yeah, but this isn't the same Kelvin Kattar that fought Max Holloway, and I get that Max Holloway is completely different. These are just young guys. Like he's only 28, and Max Holloway is surprisingly only like 32, 33-ish. So with all that he still has left in his career, it's pretty impressive how young he is. But I digress. Yusuf Zalal is good, no doubt, but I think my predictions are still true. He's going to get outboxed by Arnold Allen, if I could say that right. Arnold Allen is probably just going to be faster, probably just going to be more technical, finding the pull counters. He's going to have decent leg kicks. He actually has some underrated kicking game, and he just has really fast combinations. So I think that he's going to be able to cut off the cage much better against Giga Chikadze, for example. Giga Chikadze has really good kicks, really good deterring shots, which deter you from chasing him down. But Arnold Allen was really on that, and he was like blocking a lot of those kicks very well. Lots of those head kicks that were coming up high. He had a very tight high guard, and Giga is like the perfect test for Arnold Allen to see if he can beat a Yusuf Zalal, a guy with really good movement, really good kicks, and he has some decent punches, decent straight punches, but ultimately it's the kicking game. It's not quite Yusuf Zalal's game, but it's similar. And, I don't think that he has the Movsar Evlov grappling or the Aljamain Sterling grappling, not quite. So, I think that Arnold Allen is the fight to make. I heard a couple other people talking about that matchup and saying that that's a good matchup. I think it was Bilal Muhammad as well. He said something about that matchup. And I think that's a great matchup. Let's do that. Maybe he'll surprise me, but I think that, seeing how he did against Giga Chikadze, it's a no-brainer pick. I would pick him 29-28, maybe 30-27 on one or two of the judges' scorecards. But I mean, Yusuf Salah's an impressive guy. He's only 28, don't take this as like oh my gosh, dude, Yusuf Salah's so overrated. He's a little overrated, I think, because there are some people that were like, oh my gosh, this is the most boring fight ever, and that's just completely BS. Like, that's just ridiculous. But there is another group of people that are saying, oh my gosh, dude, he might even still be world championship caliber or challenge the world championship or challenge for it. And I'm like, what? It's either one extreme or the other. And I think that it's a little more nuanced than that, you guys. It's a little more nuanced. And then the GOAT. I mean, literally nobody I saw picking Jared Cannonier. Now, he wasn't as big of an underdog as I'm saying, or as I'm suggesting, but I'm just really happy about this one because I went to the MMA YouTuber scene and you're seeing that 25% of Tapology fans picked him and not even all of them really picked by KO. It was like, yeah, so it was like more like 70-ish, 65% of people picked by KO. And, I picked it by KO. I was surprised. Like, some people actually thought that it would be decision. I know that, I know. But he's had, like, a few decisions. I understand, like, Marvin Vittori, Caio Borralho, but, like, these guys, they got blocky heads. Gregory Rodrigues, I told you guys, he does not have that good of a chin. And when Gregory Rodrigues got caught with that big elbow in the pocket, Gregory Rodrigues knew, I'm not going to have the stamina for this, and I certainly don't have the chin for this. I'm just going to keep a high guard and just take the punishment until the ref steps in. And that's basically what happened in the fourth round. He just took the beating because he didn't have the energy to throw big meaty shots like he did in the first round. He had big meaty straight shots. People talk about the big meaty hooks. of some other guys, but these were just big meaty straight shots. It wasn't really like set up well. It wasn't really like technical. He just threw them with ferocity, straightness, like down the pipe. And they were landing two knockdowns in the first round, I think it was. Almost a 10-8, but not quite because, Cannonier landed a couple of his own in that round. Not quite nearly as devastating, but he managed to as well. I think he got a takedown in that round. I'm not too sure, but I think he picked him up. I'm not too sure if that was the first or second round, but I think it was the first. And I'm just really happy about this kind of underdog because not only is like almost all, like three-quarters of the Tapology fans picking him, and that's basically how it was for all of the fans that were watching this around the world, all UFC Fight Night fans watching this. But it's also the YouTubers. I thought that maybe some of them would pick, like maybe people would do like Weasel almost picked him, like 48% to 52%. He was picking Gregory Rodrigues. So I commend him for being a little more nuanced with it. But like most people are just like, oh dude, he's just more physical. Gregory Rodrigues is just gonna take him out, take him down and beat him up, or just, Jared Cannonier just doesn't have the chin anymore. And yeah, he gets dropped, but unless it's like a five round beatdown against or a round war against Caio Borralho, and then his chin just couldn't take it in the last round, and it was just too much, and then he freaking fell down like a domino, and then the ground and pound woke him up. Unless it's something like that, he does have the chin to survive. Like he does have good survivability. It's just in that fight, it looked like, oh my gosh, that was so devastating. But that was just because it was a sustained beating after 4 rounds, and it was kind of like that with Nasruddin Imavov as well. You look at that fight, and it's like, even though that was a stoppage or a suspicious one, whatever, not great stoppage, it was like, oh well, he was probably going to lose. But was he? Seeing how things played out here, it's like maybe he would have survived that. And again, it was sustained beating. Not Jared Cannonier, Gregory Rodrigues. He just went all out. He went for broke in the first round. People are talking about his gas tank. Yes, he doesn't have the best gas tank, and it's surprising a little bit that, oh well, he had some comebacks in like the Brett Tavares fight and some other fights previously. So how come he couldn't get the comeback here? It's because he went for broke all on out in the first round, and then he kind of had a second wind in the third round a little bit, but then when Cannonier dropped him with that elbow, he just lost his will. So Jared Cannonier, I mean, I love this win. He's a cool guy, cool win, cool mic moments afterwards. Yeah, I mean, I like Gregory Rodrigues as well. I hope he bounces back, but this is just such a satisfying underdog win. These are the ones that you really like to pick because even though the odds don't really suggest it, literally everyone notable was picking Gregory Rodrigues. So this was a great one to see. And I mean, yeah, this is the recap for UFC Fight Night, Gregory Rodrigues versus Jared Cannonier. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. The Mask is out.